Hi everyone, I'm just doing some spring cleaning. You know, getting into the areas of the house that haven't been cleaned properly for a while and getting into every hidden corner. It's amazing how much muck and dirt can accumulate over the years if one doesn't deal with it. In the same way, I believe the Father wants us to do some spiritual spring cleaning in our lives. So let's take a look at what that looks like and why it's so important for us. In his second letter to Timothy, Paul writes, "In a large house there are articles not only of gold and silver, but also of wood and clay. Some are for noble purposes, and some for ignoble. If a man cleanses himself from the latter, he will be an instrument for noble purposes, made holy, useful to the master, and prepared to do any good work." Paul compares our lives to a house and explains that there are things in our lives that need to be cleansed. But what are these things that are dishonorable? Well, in verse 19 of the same chapter, Paul writes, "God's solid foundation stands firm, sealed with his inscription. The Lord knows those who are his, and everyone who confesses the name of the Lord must turn away from wickedness." It's clear then that the spring cleaning involves getting rid of the stuff in our lives that displease God. In chapter 3 of the same letter, Paul describes believers who have allowed sin to creep into their houses, so that although their houses appear to be clean and tidy, their lives are governed by idolatry, sin, and self. Paul even warns Timothy to stay away from such people, because although they appear to be godly, they are full of wickedness and have no power. It is shocking to realize that believers can allow their houses to become so infested with sin, but how is it possible? I believe the first issue is that as long as we only do a cosmetic touch-up or a superficial cleaning of the house without doing a proper spring clean, we can allow things to grow in our houses that should have been dealt with immediately and thoroughly. The second issue has to do with our relationship to the Father. It is possible to believe in God as one's Father without allowing Him to be a father to one. In other words, we love it that God is our Father and that we have access to Him in Christ, but we don't allow Him to speak into our lives. However, we must realize that the Father recognizes those who are His by their response to His fatherliness. Another hindrance to doing a proper spring clean is when we think we have a special relationship with the Father that others don't have. So, for example, instead of embracing the full revelation of who the Father is, including the times when He needs to discipline us, we prefer to create our own image of the Father that never corrects us or shines His light on the areas in the house that need to be cleaned. There is, of course, only one Father, and He is the same with all of us. In John 15, Jesus describes how the Father cleanses us to make us fruitful. This is such an important part of the spiritual spring cleaning the Father wants to do in each of our lives. But we must let the Father in and allow Him to go into every room of our lives, so that when He speaks His word to us, we can be thoroughly cleansed and become not only useful and ready for the Father's use, but godly, powerful, and fruitful. I encourage you to read 2 Timothy chapters 2 and 3 to understand how believers become ineffective and powerless when they try to keep appearances without dealing with the dishonorable things in their houses. I'll also encourage you to read and meditate on Hebrews chapter 12 and John 15 to receive revelation of the true nature of the one Father. Allow the Father to be a father to you and embrace the fullness of who He is and what He wants to do in your life. Let the Father in so that He can help you get rid of any form of idolatry, sin, or self. He wants to speak His word to you that will cleanse you thoroughly, to make you a useful instrument in the Father's hand, ready to do any good work and to be godly, powerful, and fruitful for His glory. I'd better get on with it. Happy spring cleaning!